example right now. Maybe this will help you in not being afraid of these people. So if I were to go up to him, you know who I am, right? You know I don't work for government, but you don't really know me, right? All right, so what if I came up to you with a needle, right? We're just on the street out there, right? And I said, hey, I'm gonna require you to take this vaccine. Okay? Roll up your sleeve. Why not? I told you to.
Because I don't consent.
Well, I don't care. It's a requirement.
It's fine.
Too bad. I
Say,
don't
hold
care.
on.
Do not resist. Do not
That's
resist. Oh, you don't need to. You don't. The point is.
don't consent. But
The point is, I have no power.
Yeah, and we forget our sovereignty. We have forgotten.
All I am is just a regular old flesh and blood man walking around.
Yeah.
Now, what if
I
I?
categorically accept your offer upon proof of very bona fide claim?
All right. So what's the difference between that, me just walking up? So now let's say I walk up to you,
That's right.
and I'm a heroin dealer, and I got a needle of heroin in my hand, and I walk up to you and I say, I need your child because I need to get him addicted to heroin. What would you say?
Hell no.
What if I went at your, say this is your child, what if I went at your child, grabbed your child, and started, what would you do? Would you stop me?
Of course.
Well, what if I was wearing a little government badge that said I have authority? Would you do the same thing? If I was going to inject your child with something much worse than heroin? Would you come at me? Would you defend your child?
Of course.
Well, then why are you afraid of, what is it, a principal that sent you a letter? A school nurse? Why are you afraid to tell them no? Why not just, I mean, what's the difference? You know, all the difference is your perception.
It's social
You perceive authority because there's a uniform. That's why they created uniforms.
It's more than that, I think. It's also social conditioning from the time that we
Absolutely.
are in kindergarten. It's
Absolutely.
social conditioning that we are trained to fear the teacher. You know?
Right.
It's like,
No rational person would submit their child to, I mean, you know, you would always protect, rationally, you would always protect your child from everything, no matter who's coming at you. But for some reason, just because you've got an official looking letter in the mail, you're perplexed. You have no idea what the hell you're going to do because you're afraid they're going to vaccinate your kid. They're going to, you know, again, what if I sent you a letter as a dope dealer? And I said, hey, this is my turf, this is my block, and I just want to let you know that at any time, you know, in order for your child to walk my streets, I'm going to have you, you know, put some heroin in or take this pill. What would you do?
right, that's exactly.
I mean, this is the thing
That's
with
right.
people is that it's
People-
perception of
We
authority.
live in school districts.
Most of
right?
the
We
time,
live
the
in school
vaccines
districts.
that where they get that
Or voting
piece,
districts.
especially with really, really, really young parents and really, really young children, is they get them straight in the hospital. I mean,
Right.
there are babies who are literally inoculated 3 days and 2 days after they were absolutely just born. And the doctor comes in
That's soon.
and
That's
he
soon.
says you need to sign off on this. And the nurse comes in, unbelievable. He was in
And they make you sign the paper after it's done, after the fact.
He's in special education classes, right? And I was one of the teachers there, and I was talking with the mom, and I was like, you know, well, tell me, give me a little bit about this. And she showed me the paper. This kid had to have like 36 vaccinations. 36!
Right, right.
He was only 3 years old. That's the point.
That is the point. That
36
is the point. Yeah.
The horrible thing.
And on top of that, he was taking medication.
But may I say, in terms of what he just said, in terms of your right to say no, I just read this morning, and I've read about this kind of a situation in the past, is that the mother questioned the hepatitis B vaccine that was going to be inoculated, her child was going to be inoculated with. They took the child away CPS arrived and they removed the
It's
child.
happening more and more.
Okay, so this is the most important
Oh my
point.
God.
This is very.
And this is where
Oh,
this
no,
comes
children.
into play, because the state's opinion, let me read you the state's opinion, okay? And when I say the state, we're talking about due process of law, which means basically the courts make opinions. The court, the court system is actually, it's not what we think it is. It's actually part of the executive branch. There has never been a third branch of government, never been as a check and balance. The court system, the Supreme Court, was not created by the Constitution. It was created in Congress in 1789. It was the first act of Congress called the Act of 1789. Okay? So the courts are nothing more than basically businesses. They bring you in, they tell you the state's opinion, and public opinion is literally the court's decision. When you hear the word public, or when you hear the word public opinion, that's the opinion of the bar or the courts. Okay, that's what that means. Here is what the courts say, and I'm just going to read these to you. Marriage is a civil contract to which there are three parties: the husband, the wife, and the state.
It's true. It happens.
When two people decide to get married, they are required to first procure a license from the state. And if they have children of this marriage, they are required by the state to submit their children to certain things such as school attendance and vaccinations. This is the opinion of the court in Illinois' appellate court. Okay? Furthermore, if at some time in the future the couple decides the marriage is not working, they must petition the state for a divorce. Remember when I said you must demand? Okay? This is telling people, no, send us a petition. A petition is basically asking permission. Okay? Marriage is a three-party contract between the man, the woman, and the state. I'm just going to read you a couple others from different court cases in different states. It says the state is like a silent partner in the family. The state has a wide range of power for limiting parental freedom and authority. In fact, the entire familial relationship involves the state. The state represents the public interest in the institution of marriage. My favorite, the primary control and custody of infants is with the government.
Yeah, I've heard that.
All right?
I've heard
You know,
that.
we can go on.
Really
That's why they can
Actually,
require your
yes,
child to
they
go to
said
school,
worse.
because
This
they
federal, this is
believe they
Illinois.
own your child. They believe they
This
own
is a
your
bunch of
child.
different cases.
You're
that
just
I
a
pulled up.
caretaker. You're
The
just a
primary
caretaker.
control and custody of infants is with the government, listen to this now, to be delegated, as of course, to their natural guardians, in other words, the parents. So the state is literally delegating its authority to raise your children to you. You understand?
It's not even a half of it.
Yeah.
Is it?
As long as you're a suitable person. In other words, when it says something like that, a person is a corporation, you're a corporation. As long as you are a suitable citizen, they won't mess with you, they won't take your children. But the second you know, when you come back to this one, and it says, if they have children of this marriage, they're required by the state to submit their children to certain things such as school attendance and vaccinations.
And what is the word suitable?
You have
Right.
just become what they would call an unsuitable person. So what does this say? They're going to delegate your authority to the natural guardians, which is you as the parent, so long as the guardians are suitable persons. The second you are not suitable anymore, that's when they start taking your children, like you were just talking about. This is very important. This is all based on consent to this. Okay? This is public opinion. This is what a man in a robe, who is not even an official constitutional judge. There are none of those in the country. The only thing close to it is a magistrate, which I don't want to get into. But here's the last thing that it says. Well, here's another one. The state is the father and mother of the child. And the natural parents are not entitled to custody, except upon the state's beneficent recognition that natural persons presumably will be the best citizens, citizens, not people, but citizens,
Right,
to
right,
delegate
right.
its custodial powers. Okay?
So we represent the state bringing up our kids.
In other words, your citizenship, what I'm trying to get at here is that your citizenship to the United States is your consent to this. The only way that you can avoid this type of public opinion from being used against you, in other words, this kind of thought in the courts, is with what we were talking about earlier, which is the legal demand, the notarized legal documents that you create. Without that, you have no natural rights. You only have the rights that are delegated in the Constitution. Remember, the Constitution, or the Bill of Rights, which you're celebrating today, it does nothing but enumerate your natural rights. What it does is it creates a citizen, it creates a contractual person. A person is a corporation, it's a fictional thing. It's what you carry around with you in your wallet. It's your driver's license, everything you sign contracts with. That is how you conduct business with the state.
Commerce.
So that makes you a citizen. That is what this is talking about. It's not talking about you. When it refers to you in here, again, let me read this. The primary control and custody of infants is with the government to be delegated to their natural parents. Okay? But then it says, so long as the guardians, the natural guardians, natural parents, are suitable persons. Okay? Remember that when it says person, it's talking about the fact that you are a citizen and you've given, by being a citizen, the consent is assumed in everything.
Consent of the governed.
Consent of the governed. You are the governed. For them to have any power over you, you must give consent. But remember, everything out there, every law, every license, everything you sign, and everything you don't sign, is designed to give your consent, whether you know about it or not. Most people don't even know what the word consent even really means. They have no idea that every single word out there is a legal term. Okay? And it's so important to understand this. Let me read the last thing, and I'll give you this page as a reference. Okay? When it comes to the Constitution actually wasn't really written for the people. It was written as a way to control the people. And this is something that a lot of people don't like to acknowledge, because everybody reads the Constitution with basically rose-colored glasses. So here's what the court thinks. And it doesn't matter what you think or you think or you think about the Constitution. It doesn't matter what your belief is. Okay? Because belief is not fact. And belief, or the conversational language that we use, has nothing to do with the legal language. The legal language is very specific. Okay, so here's what it says in the court. City of Savannah, this one was. It says, but indeed, no private person. Okay, when it says private person, that's referring to you as a citizen. Okay? Indeed, no private person has the right to complain by suit in court on the grounds of a breach of the Constitution. The Constitution, it is true, is a compact, but he is not a party to it. That means that the private person is not a party to the Constitution. The Constitution has nothing to do with the person. It created the person. Then the Supreme Court, here's what it says. The people of the United States resident within any state are subject to two governments. The state, one the state, and the other national. Okay? Here's the most important thing. It is this is the Supreme Court talking. It is the natural consequence of citizenship which owes allegiance to two sovereignties and claims protection from both. The citizen cannot complain because he has voluntarily submitted himself to such a form of government. What is that saying? That means that from birth, without even the knowledge that you are getting this little certificate that basically inundates you into the corporate structure of the United States, without any type of consent whatsoever, without even being able to sign your name, you're immediately thrown into being a citizen of the United States. The United States is not America, okay? This table, this guy here, we are America. The United States is a 10-mile square piece of land that is not even within the United States. It's Washington, D.C., the District of Columbia. It's not a state, okay? It's not one of the United States. It is a corporation called the United States, okay? So, again, it says, you voluntarily submitted to this form of government. So this is why I'm telling you,
Is this related to the laws?
this is why I'm telling you that you have to, because you are already a citizen, the consent is not needed by the school to vaccinate your children. The only way that the school is ever going to know that you don't consent to it, or care for that matter, is if you put it down in a legal demand, a paper, something that says, hey, I do not consent to you injecting anything to my child. And while you're at it, if you hit my kid, I'm going to sue the hell out of you. If you do this, I mean, there's so many things that can be solved. One of the things I was talking to you about is I have this idea. It's been brewing in my head for a while about the geoengineering that's going on.
Yes,
I
yes.
said, imagine this, because right now they're doing that.
Chemtrails? You mean
Tim-
chemtrails?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Tim found sorry, that's not Tim anymore. Tim did something that was really brilliant. I wrote up the whole thing on it, but he found a public notice in the newspaper. When the government puts a public notice in the newspaper, of course, nobody reads these things. You basically, that has notified the public. What that means is that it's given the public informed, it's given the government informed consent, because now everybody in the state of Utah has the ability to pick up a paper and read a public notice. So now everybody in the state of Utah has been notified about the intent of government. The name of the public notice said intent to create weather modification. Okay, it's right there in black and white. Nobody ever sees
Except if
it.
you haven't read the
Actually,
newspaper.
the
How do they know
But
that?
even if you do,
How do they know that everybody in the state has read that newspaper?
They know you're not reading it.
Yeah,
why
that's
they
the
do it.
point.
There
why
was
they do it.
a
That's
court
ludicrous.
case
It's
where a
ludicrous.
guy
You're
actually brought a
informed.
suit
No,
against
wanna know?
his
You don't know?
You're not informed
or
until you read
state
the paper.
entity. State. When I say government entity, I mean government. But
It's legalese. You have been
and-
officially notified. That's all.
he won his case actually, but the point, but in the actual advent of the case was that the people have to have given their consent over to basically what he was purporting that was actually in their chemtrails and their death dump kind of things. And he said that they've given their consent by not saying anything.
Yep.
Acquiescing.
Most
That's
important
exactly
thing.
right. Acquiescing.
Even if one person has objected, I have objected again and again, and I have records. So the
Yeah,
question
but how did
is,
you
But
object?
that's what I was about to say. You need to
What did
object
you
as a
say?
sovereign.
I said, they're spraying.
Did you say you don't consent to it?
Well, at the time, I was wondering what it was, because I didn't know what it was.
Right, but what I'm trying to
I said,
tell
I
you
can't
is-
imagine
The most
what this
important part
is.
about how
This
to
is
deal
the
with
most important
vaccine
lesson
and
anybody
the-
can
Yeah,
learn.
yeah.
What you didn't say, I mean, you could hold up a sign all
I
day
said, I'm
long.
concerned as a parent, and I'm writing to you as a
Well,
parent.
guess what? The greatest
Why? I said, I
thing,
don't know what's in it. What are you spraying?
the most wonderful
Why are you
thing,
spraying it?
the most wonderful thing me as government would want you to do is, one, pick it, hold up a sign, do whatever it is that you do that makes you feel better about, saying that I don't want you to do this. Please don't do this. What I want you to do is I want you to send me a letter. I want you to send me an email, because emails are great because they can actually send you a response that's just a blanket form letter, and then they can put it in the trash, or they put it in a record that says, hey, we got a response or a letter and we responded to it. But not once did you say the only thing that matters.
You do not have my consent.
The legal terminology that says you
Well,
do not
actually,
have
no,
my
I
consent.
wrote about that too. I sent more than one letter, and I sent them the law, and I said, this is ludicrous. I do not acquiesce to this. So I have
You have
actually
to-
said
Yeah,
that.
you're right. You're absolutely wrong. You're
And
absolutely
I
right.
made
You've
two
got the right
films. I
idea.
made two
Well,
films
we've got
saying
to
I do
do
not
that.
acquiesce. Call you and say you do not.
Was it a notarized legal demand? Or just a letter that you wrote?
Yeah.
No, many letters.
I mean,
yeah.
people write
And
letters
and I
to
have
Santa
two
Claus.
videos. I have two videos saying, call your congressman and say, stop it.
There
Stop
are more.
it."
There are
I
more
have four
people.
videos.
There are
Stop
more people
contracts.
writing letters to Santa Claus than there are people writing to government saying I don't consent to this, that, or the other.
Oh, no, well, see, now you're being very clear about exactly what has to
This
happen.
is the key to it.
Right,
It really
right,
is.
but I've complained, I've said this, I've made videos, I've sent them.
You're right. You're
Well,
on the right
I've
track,
done
but
everything
now
I knew to do.
I'm doing
I
that.
think it's great.
Now-
That's
And I said,
wonderful
tell
that
them
you have the
don't
spirit.
No, tell them you don't acquiesce because you don't acquiesce. This is my
Okay, well,
instruction.
what don't you acquiesce to?
Spraying us.
Well, you
Chemtrails.
can't say that. That doesn't mean anything. You can't say chemtrails. There's no such thing as chemtrails. There's
Biological-
geoengineering,
Well-
there's weather modification, there's
Okay,
all
we
kinds
don't-
of
we
names.
don't
Experiment-
acquiesce
this is
to
another
this
one.
law.
It's experimental
Right.
science.
Say-
Hey, see, now you're
Okay,
getting somewhere.
right, but I sent them the law.
Did you send them the law that says they can't, the U.S. code that says they can't act under color of law? Did you send them, I mean,
No,
there's,
I didn't
there's
say
all these
that.
things.
Well, no,
You see,
no.
the
is how
problem
you
is that
stop.
there's a correct
This is
way
one of the
to
ways
do
to
it.
And
stop
you're gonna
DDT.
give me a prototype and I'm gonna do it and tell
That's
all my
why I
friends
said
to do it too.
That's why I said-
Especially you.
What's
25 square miles of the United States to send a letter, the same letter of non-consent to these public notices that are posted and to the United Nations and to the federal government and their state governments, and they're all notarized, they're all written the same way, then all of a sudden you have a whole shield of non-consent, and that would then create the basis for a lawsuit that could actually not only put it in the court record so that everybody can see it, but get it in front of a jury to decide instead of just the government. And it's obviously a daunting task, but I mean, it would be the only.
I want to
Yeah,
do this.
like,
Go ahead.
We could do like a class action and get all the people and
Class
have
action
signs that
suits will
say,
technically are different.
we do not.
If you're not trying to get money out of the class action lawsuit, then you might be able to, actually, in court, this is another thing that's very important. In court, we have the illusion that the judge is all powerful and that and really all he is an officer of the court, meaning he's an officer. Well, I'll put it to you this way. Say I got a ticket, okay, and it says I have to pay $100 for running a stop sign. I go in front of it's not a judge, it's not a magistrate, it's actually an administrative officer who wears a robe and pretends to be a constitutional or legal lawful judge. And if I were to ask him, well, wait a minute, so who do you work for, sir? He would tell me, I work for the municipal corporation called Draper, which is Salt Lake City, where I live. And who does the police officer that wrote me the citation work for? Oh, well, he works for the municipal corporation called Salt Lake City. And who does the attorney that's prosecuting work for? Oh, well, he works for the municipal corporation called Salt Lake City. Can I get a fair trial?
What's that?
No, because it's not court, it's not real. The system is set up to make you think that we're still operating under courts, a court system that's still, it's based in the Constitution. We have never had that. Again, the courts were created by Congress just after the Constitution was created. In fact, you can read the Constitution, you can see where it sets up what it should be, but it never actually creates it. It created the executive and it created the Congress. So the courts are very much like the Federal Reserve or the Post Office or the Social Security Administration. They're all created by Congress. All of the bills that originally created them are amended to help by Congress. Everything that the Federal Reserve can do was actually created by Congress. So the fact that the Federal Reserve can't talk to Congress is because Congress voted to make it so, because they don't want what the Federal Reserve does as public record.
Isn't
Okay.
this amazing? Seriously, let's
Yeah.
all take a moment and let that sink
So
in.
the whole system, the court system, again, we talked about the presidents. Were you guys here for that? The presidents are all basically cousins. And it's a big family affair in government. And who are the Supreme Court justices? Well, guess what? They're cousins of the president. I mean, it's a family affair, literally. How can you have a Supreme Court that's full of people that the president picked and then were approved by Congress? How can they possibly then go against Congress or the president? It's not going to happen. Not to mention, you've got the American Bar Association. The bar is basically
London.
everything in court. London, but also there's the International Bar Association, which is more United Nations than anything. But we have if you think that there's a separation of powers in government, you have a president, President Obama, who is a barred attorney. His wife is a barred attorney. You have 36% of senators are all barred attorneys. You have the majority of Congress, as far as I know, is barred attorneys. Most governors are barred attorneys. You have a country that's being run by basically a private association called the Bar Association. You cannot have a separation of powers in a country with supposedly 3 branches of government. Well, we have to take away the judicial because there isn't one. You can't have a separation of powers if all of the people in government are all part of the bar or the judicial side of everything. We do not have, in any way, shape, or form, a constitution, a Bill of Rights, or anything else. What I wanted to read, so that we have a deep understanding of actually what the Bill of Rights is, and I don't mean to offend anybody, because I know we're here to celebrate it, and it's okay to celebrate the Bill of Rights and the Constitution for maybe what it was intended, although my personal opinion is that the intent was quite obvious. I want to read you the two amendments. One of them being the Fifth Amendment, and I bought this at the Kinko's because I wanted to be completely accurate. But this really.
What an endorsement for Kinko's.
I know, right? Let me read this so that you understand. You've got to listen to this whole thing. What we do is we read the Constitution, but we never really read it. We don't take off the rose-colored glasses. We don't forget that since birth we've been celebrating the flag, not America, but the flag. Okay, the flag of this country. It's got 13 stripes, red and white, right? Mm-hmm. When you guys go home, get on your computer and look up the East India Company flag, and you'll see that it was a flag with 13 red and white stripes. No different than the American flag. The only difference is the blue crest in the corner, which it turns out was George Washington's, something to do with George Washington's family crest.
The blue field of stars, the white stars.
Yeah. And by the way, what's her name, who created the Star-Spangled Banner and created the flag? They're all cousins. All cousins of the Queen.
Betsy Ross.
All those folks.
According to the story,
Betsy Ross.
first grade, she wanted to put 6-pointed stars in, and George said, "It's a beautiful design, dear, but I recommend 5-pointed stars." I don't know what that story is.
A pentagram
Well,
versus
six would be the Star of David. 6 points would be the
that's-
Star
You
of
know,
David.
one of the flags they had during one of the elections, they had actually turned the stars so that they were upside down.
Oh, they do that all the time. All
Yeah,
the time.
very
Matter of
strange.
fact, go look up
By the way,
any Republican.
just
You look at the flag of the Republican Party, and any this RNC and the last RNC, and I think goes back at least 30 years. They are all upside down stars. They are pentagrams. They are pentagrams. It is unbelievable.
This all
I
very
used to
much
post
has
that all
to
the
do with
time.
vaccines, by the way. You're taking allegiance to the United States, which is a 10-mile square piece of land outside of the United States. You're not saying I will, love and abide by the people. No, you're pledging allegiance to the East India Company. Is basically what you're doing, and that's been transformed.
Which used to happen.
The Delaware Corporation.
Absolutely. I don't wanna go to
Right.
the East India
It's
Company.
called
Oh
now
my God.
the Committee of
They
300.
they used to
You and the
own.
East India Company go way back.
Yeah.
Yes, it goes back. It does. It does. The East
Technically,
India Company,
They used to own India.
Which morphed-
They used
Yes,
to literally
yes,
say,
yes.
in India, like these, I am a child of the East India Corporation. Legally, they would say, they wouldn't say those words. They owned people.
Guess what?
And
So are we.
it developed
Yeah,
into
so are we. Nobody.
the
In
East-
fact, here, I'll start with
Slavery
the.
The East
was
India
abolished.
Company developed into the British
Now
East
it's
India Company, which then developed into the Committee of
Even,
300.
The
exactly.
committee for what?
Even you,
Committee of
even
300.
you have been
Oh.
indoctrinated, being a black man, Even you've been indoctrinated into
Amendment.
this. Okay, here's the 13th Amendment. I want you guys got to listen to what this says because it's right in your face, but you've never read it.
Decode it.
Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a except.
Oh, wait.
You understand? Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime,
Okay, we're all criminals.
whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. What does that say? If we just switch around the words, it says that slavery or involuntary servitude is okay as long as you're convicted of a crime.
Yeah.
Thus, this creates such an important role for the judicial. All they need is a criminal indictment. They can put you in jail, and you can go look up, what is it? Is it Unicor? Unicor. There's all kinds of different corporations. The Corrections Corporation of America. My roommate got a new hardwood floor. This is what I'm telling you. He got a new hardwood floor. It was called Shaw hardwood flooring. And I didn't realize, but before, when I was talking about this on a radio show, I had a guy called in and said, I live next to, in like somewhere down south, and I live in the town where Shaw Flooring is, and it's all prisoners that are making these floors.
So a Shaw plank.
Shaw in general is a very big prison labor employer. So now,
You mean the
every
big
time
Shaw company?
Shaw Company, flooring, carpets, all that. Now, every time I walk on my
Part of
floor,
Shawshank, this is Shaw plank.
every time I walk on my floor, I look down and it's a reminder to me, because I didn't know it when it was going in, it's a reminder to me that we have a complete, you're worried about jobs going to China? Hell, go look at the prison industry. Go look at unicor.com,
That's right.
.gov.com.
Much cheaper.
Yeah, oh, 60 cents an hour and you've got, anyway,
12
okay.
cents, 12 cents, and then the taxpayer picks up the rest of it.
Right, so the point here is if the Constitution, I'm all for the Constitution, but it would have to be changed. Right now, I do not accept this. I consent to the Constitution. I don't derive my rights from it because the rights that are derived in here are political rights.
Exactly.
They're not natural rights. So let's talk about God. Okay, you said you claimed religion, but you don't, you're sort of Buddhist. Here's the fact, all right? God exists or does not exist despite whatever the hell you believe. Okay? God does not exist because there's a religion. God does not exist because you believe in him or do not. If he exists and he's this all-powerful thing, then that's the end to all religious discussion. No matter what you do on this planet, no matter what you subscribe to, whatever your belief is, he, it, nature, whatever, exists despite what you do or what you believe. Okay, religion is the most important exemption. It's one of the most important things in law next to consent, because no matter what you believe, and trust me, it doesn't matter what you believe, as long as you have a power that is higher than man, you can always turn to the higher power to make your law for you personally. So God's law basically is to do no harm. Do no harm to others, very Buddhist. Do no harm to others and do no harm to their property.
Where is that from?
That is natural law.
What is it? God's law, really?
Technically, if you condense the whole thing that they call God's law, it basically says, just don't do any harm to me or my property. I won't do anything to you and your
If you look at the
property,
Scripture,
and we can
the things
live.
that God has done, I'm talking about Yahweh. He said to Joshua, go forth to those sinning cities and put to the sword every man, woman, and child. Kill all living things, every sheep in the sheepfold, every goat, and all the cattle, kill them all. Get all things of value, all metal, and bring them unto the treasury of Yahweh. Now that is not so, he's not saying do no harm, he's saying kill everybody, and let God sort them out.
But those are words of men. I don't care what anybody says.
Right, right.
But that's what he's saying, that this is Yahweh. Yahweh is not
Yahweh's a
God.
manufactured fictional
But Yahweh is not the God that Clint is talking about.
Good. Okay.
Right, and we're not talking about religion when we say that. We're talking about what exists that is so far beyond our comprehension that for a man to claim that he knows God is probably the most arrogant thing
Exactly.
I've ever heard in my life.
The
So
word
again,
belief. boils down to, I don't know.
And it doesn't matter if God exists or not. That's the point. Religious exemption, whatever your religion is. My favorite is the flying spaghetti monster. If you don't know FSM, you should. You have to have a power that is higher than man in order to deny man's legal codes. Okay. You also, at the same time, must take responsibility for your actions. Right now, government is set up, as we talked about before, to completely take away the responsibility of everyone's actions and put them into a corporate person, an artificial thing. This is why people in government can, police, for instance, can beat the crap out of you because you don't know that it's the person that's doing it, not the government officer. And you can actually go after them. If suddenly everybody understood that you could sue the man and not the police officers would stop abusing people.
They would
stop
touch
shooting
anybody.
people. I'm telling
They
you.
wouldn't touch them.
If they knew that by
Let's talk in terms of doctors and nurses too.
Well, yeah,
That's
exactly.
why
Teachers,
Exactly.
and teachers.
Why-
I have been like
And
20,
that's
20
the
26
most
years
important part.
working as a teacher. I've always wrestled with the
'Cause-
question, to what extent do my students believe that I am acting as a person or as an employee of CUNY? You know, I've always wrestled with that. You know, and I always tell my kids, right, first day, you know, I am working for this school, but I don't identify with this school. So there's a distinction that I make here, and I'm not teaching you.
And so,
You
this
can
is
teach
why
yourself.
this is
You
the
teach yourself.
important parts about
Anything
the vaccine issue.
Oscar Wilde said,
Sorry.
you know, anything worth knowing is self-taught. So you know, I'm not here to teach you. You teach yourself.
And
whatever,
that's-
you know.
That's the worst thing. No wonder you're unemployed. They're not gonna want you as a teacher, because this is what I'm telling you over there. The only way you're ever going to exempt your children from vaccination with the Supreme Court or whoever it is that's saying that federal trumps state and we can vaccinate your kids anytime you want, with the court right there in your hands saying that it's required when it's not. The court knows it's not. For someone like this to be a teacher, that's oh no. You must always realize that the only thing that can be sovereign is you. No one else. There is no such thing as a sovereign citizen. Okay? That doesn't make sense. It's an oxymoron. You cannot be a sovereign and be your own king and yet be a citizen of something that has rules like this. The only person that can protect you and your natural rights is you. The only person, being a corporation, that can protect your political rights, your legal rights, is the government. Okay? Remember, your natural rights come from God and nothing else. And as long as you have that, political rights are always underneath natural rights or God-given rights. So the Bill of Rights is nothing more than a listing of natural rights that you agree from birth to take your natural God-given rights that no one can touch, that you must defend with your life if necessary, and turns it into what is called civil rights. Now, civil rights have been worshipped and cherished, but remember what the 13th Amendment says. See, the 13th Amendment is called the abolishment of slavery. But listen again, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude except as a punishment for crime shall exist within the United States. What did this do? It created a civil right. It took everyone's natural right. It took all the slaves, right? All the slaves became equal slaves with white people.
Right.
That's what the 13th Amendment does.
The
And
funny
it
part
creates
about
the option to become a slave.
is that
Shall exist within the United States or any place subject to its jurisdiction. If that's what the 13th Amendment said, it would be a beautiful, wonderful thing. And it would not be amendable. But what it says, as with everything else in the Constitution, it says that slavery is okay as long as it's a punishment for crime.
That's what
Okay.
it really says.
Meaning that criminals can be used by the state.
Anybody is a criminal.
That's why the
if they want a
judicial is so
criminal.
important
They
to
have
control.
criminals everywhere. We're all
Because it's the one that tells you you've committed a crime.
We're going to say that.
This is
That's it.
religion.
Now
That's
let's
what this is.
let Martin
Understand?
talk. He has a stick.
All you need to know is that this is no different than any other
That's why
religion
there
in
is
the
a
world.
stick.
That's right.
Okay?
I have a
Let's
real
read.
talking stick at home.
Let's read. This may help you understand. Okay? This is amendment number 5. Okay? Rights of persons, not flesh and blood people. Okay? The rights of persons, citizens. Okay? Contracted citizens.
So citizen is synonymous with the word person legally? A
Person means an individual, corporation, association. You'll see that in the
Yeah, you
movie,
remember when
actually.
Romney says corporations are people too?
Yep, and that's,
I know
see,
that,
that's why.
but in ordinary language, we know ourselves in the flesh and blood as persons, don't we?
Yeah, well, the terminology, the legal
That's the
terminology.
problem, and
That's
you
the
know, I
problem.
wrote something down that I kind of coined
know
that I want to read to you, and it's right here, and maybe this will help, because I can never remember it. Here's what it says. Okay, your words, okay, your everyday conversational words.
Right.
Your words mean nothing if you don't know the meaning of your words. And when I say that, I mean that your everyday conversational words, when I say person, I just mean you. I don't mean, I'm not talking legal.
Right.
But legal is very specific. So if you don't know, when you're talking about the Constitution, every word in here is legal. It's very specific. And if you go back to, say, Bouvier's Law Dictionary of 1856, and you look up the word person, you look up the word constitution, you find out the Constitution actually means it's a debt contract.
Okay.
So it's a debt.
Okay, so every word in the Constitution
Everything
is
is legal.
different. It's different in meaning from what is ordinarily known by
They say
people.
we, they don't mean
And
you.
that's
We,
our
we,
ignorance
we.
because we don't know this.
And it's not necessarily our fault.
You don't
No, it's not, because
We're
it's not.
indoctrinated from birth.
We're not taught this in school. We're not taught this in school. We're not taught this by our religious institutions. We're not taught this by our families. Who knows this
I'll
stuff?
tell you what. Here,
Who
let
knows
me.
it?
You're not
You know-
supposed to know.
I was gonna do this.
That's why you have to not consent. Until I know, I can't consent.
Here's
How about
a-
that? How about that as a premise?
Here's
I know, but-
$100.
but-
If we don't know, how can we consent? We're not given the straight
Except
go.
you. Here's $100 that it means a lot to me because I'm poor. I'm a poor activist, but I'm going to put it right here,
Excellent.
right here,
All right.
for anybody that can give me the legal definition of freedom.
Freedom. The word is dumb, not D-U-M-B, but it's all.
Well, yeah, that's
domination.
clever, but you say the word freedom all the time. So now tell me what the hell it means legally.
You own yourself.
Nope.
No, it's
What does it
domination. It
mean?
has to do with domination. The last syllable, dom.
What does freedom mean legally? There's a legal definition.
I said
Everything
it
in the
has to do with
Constitution.
domination.
To be free from fear.
See?
Domination.
The most important word in the history of words, and we don't know what it means.
All right,
be
to
free
be
from
free
domination.
from fear, to be
Domini,
free
domini,
from
domini.
taxes, to be no.
No, that's what
Now
we all
remember,
think.
that's what
we
you
all
that's what you say every day when you say it. But
Yeah.
legally,
Legal.
Oh, okay.
everything has a very
When they say
specific
it.
meaning.
Okay.
And I'm talking about the freedom that is granted in the Constitution. It's a privilege. It's not a right. Freedom is a privilege. Okay. What does freedom mean? $100.
Freedom goes back to the word friend, actually. The word freedom and friend are related. In the root.
Okay.
Friend.
Yeah.
That's probably true in the ancient Latin, but has nothing to do with the legal meaning.
Okay.
People like the legal language, even though it's hell. It's hell on earth because it's very specific. It's very you never have to question what it means, as opposed to the word. Pardon my French. The word F-U-C-K has thousands of meanings.
It's true. It's true. It's very vague.
Right? It's a very good word if you consider it that way.
Well, it's vague.
but
It's
but
vague.
but the word freedom only has one meaning. Okay. No one gets $100.
Yeah,
It boils down to
I bet
one
you
meaning
knew
of-
what it meant.
Okay.
You could have taken him to the cleaners.
All I can say is related to the word dominate, dominion,
Yes, it does
all
that.
these words are.
That's exactly right. Here's what it means. This is
Okay.
going to surprise you.
Little
Okay?
later.
Freedom is
That's the opposite.
defined,
It's the opposite.
and this is the condensed version, but freedom is legally defined as to be free to do whatever you want, which is, basically what we think, as long as you obey the law. Okay, so freedom in legal language means to obey the law.
If you submit to domination.
Freedom means obey the law. You guys have to remember this above all else, and consent, freedom means to obey the law, because we're not talking about natural freedom. We're talking again about political freedom. Let me give you an example. The Federal Reserve, everybody says it's an independent agency of government, which is absolutely 100% true. It has political independence, just like the post office has political independence, just like the Social Security Administration was created by Congress, all of these. It can be ended at any time by Congress politically. Natural independence does not exist in the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is allowed to make its own rules, just like you as a mother in your own household can make your own rules. But the second that you break one of the laws, you're in violation of the law. See, Federal Reserve only has the power delegated to it by Congress. One of those powers is to make its own rules. Again, you have you have, as a citizen of the United States, you have political freedom, which means that you obey the law. Okay, if you had natural freedom, if you weren't a citizen, then you have natural freedom.
How can one become not a citizen?
It's tough. You know, the funny thing is kind of like what we were talking about with the demand and not consenting. You have to not consent to anything. You got a new Social Security card not too long ago, right? The Social Security card, the information that comes with it says this is the property of the Social Security Administration. It is not yours. If you use it, you're in trouble because you're using something else's property. The Social Security card says specifically on the card, I believe, that this is the property of Social Security. It's not you, okay? When I pull out my driver's license, for instance, okay?
Yes.
This,
That's right.
if I were to be asked for who I am, I would not use this.
No.
I will never show this to anybody. I keep this. I volunteer to have this, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm bound by it. But technically, this is a contract to obey the Motor Vehicle Code, which is actually basically federal that the states copy and then amend depending on what they want to do. But my name here, it's all capital letters. That's my person.
That's it. the capital
This is my
letters.
person. This is my citizen. It's like a doppelganger. It's from Roman law, the straw man. It's called the fictional person, created in Roman law. Okay? This is how you do commerce. In fact, this license, if I can find it, is it doesn't say it on here, but it's a commercial license.
Right,
Okay.
I actually know that. My question is, how do we shed our citizenship so that we are sovereign? Well, you are, no. When you're born, the fact that you have a birth certificate,
Right.
right? So
But
how
are
does one
you-
undo the birth certificate?
Are you the birth certificate? Are you the license? Are you the Social Security
No,
card?
I'm not.
You don't
No,
have-
I'm
No,
not.
you're
No, I'm
not. Do you acknowledge that you are? Say, when you go in to get a license, do you bring your Social Security? Do you bring your? This is all the Social. It's like God. Social Security card that you have, you're never going to get rid of. Well, you might if you're one of these crazy people that spend hours a day doing. But technically, it's implied that you're a citizen. They don't care whether you want to be or not. You're a citizen. Okay. And your perception is that they have the power to say so. But the Social Security card is like God. It exists or doesn't exist, whether you use it or not. Whether you believe in it or not, whether you carry it with you or not, you have a Social Security number. Now the question is, when you go to apply for a job, this is the real trick. Do you have to use it? Well, their own law, says no, you don't. In fact, you can sue a company that won't hire you because you won't give them your Social Security number. Okay? My belief is Social Security is the mark of the beast. Because at this point, you can't get a job, you can't do a lot of things, you can't get a bank account, you can't get a lot of things without a Social Security number or your number. That's why I call it the number of the beast being the corporation, the United States. That's my belief. What people don't know, which amazes me because I'm into the CAFR thing, that's my real, there are 143 countries that have Social Security. In fact, the Chinese Social Security system is called Social Security. Social being the most important word. Okay?
Socialism.
It's the International Social Security Administration, run by the World Bank and in the United Nations. That is Social Security. Social Security was actually created in the League of Nations, which was defunct because everybody recognized it for what it was. Then they went to the United Nations, a little more covert and secretive. If you can go to my blog and look at the story. I can't remember what I called it, but it was the mark of the beast. But Social Security Administration, the International Social Security Administration, has 143 countries. We are currently in contract with other countries, I think 19 of them, for our Social Security. So you go to another country, that government's going to ensure that our government's going to ensure that their government makes you pay Social Security. It's a big pension fund, essentially. Big pension scheme. It's a lie. You are or you are not. You have to make that choice. And unfortunately, most people like having government benefits. They like the fact that they're going to get a Social Security payment at the end of their life if they're lucky. So they're willing to use the Social Security number. I still use it sometimes.
This is the dilemma I've been having about applying for unemployment insurance, right? Which I have to finish up tomorrow. I began it on Friday. I did some mistake. They said, yeah, got to call on Monday, use the phone and finish up your application on Monday. That's tomorrow, But I've been resisting unemployment insurance.
It's hard.
And because I don't want to,
well,
go along with this socialistic.
Maybe this makes you feel better. They require, the government creates the Federal Reserve, gives the Federal Reserve a monopoly on money. Okay, if you go and create your own currency and you start competing with government, they're going to throw you in jail. There's no legal or lawful thing that'll stop them. Or they might just kill you. Okay, so money, because you're required and forced to use money, and you paid into this whole insurance scheme, Social Security,
through my taxes,
or unemployment,
through my taxes.
It. Don't feel guilty about it. Just take it. Okay, you're unemployed right now because of government, not because of you or because of anybody else. So just take it. Use the time like I did. I took it for 20 months because maybe you don't know, but I lived here. I left after 2001, watching 9/11 from my roof. I worked for the airlines. I took a 20-month furlough, and I got Social Security. I went to school and became a professional sound designer in Hollywood. That's how I learned Hollywood was such a horrible place. And so that's why I got the skill with the sound and the sound design and all that. Worked on all kinds of games and stuff. So just I turned it to my advantage. A lot of people are just happy to have it. It's free money, whatever.
Well, it's tough. It really is.
I've been living on my savings.
It's Bob Marley. I always say Bob Marley said, he said it really right. He said, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. Emancipating ourselves from mental slavery
right?
is such a daunting task.
That's
Just like
Bob
Sally's
Marley.
question.
That's Bob
How
Marley.
do you do this?
That's Bob
I
Marley.
mean, I've just scratched the surface. I'm trying to figure out
And he got
how we're
rid
going
of
to
it
get
for
rid,
supper tickets.
how to be able to operate within these, I should say, just being able to be a good creditor in commerce with fellow individuals.
But see, that's still government. Your UCC and all that, I kind of fell for that too. But there's nothing. That's all that's doing is turning to admiralty law.
Well, I know
commercial
that being
code.
able to understand the admiralty
So
law.
here's
Admiralty law is very important to be able to
you have to
and
understand.
understand the differences between.
Well, like I
admiralty
said,
law
you
and common law.
you don't have to know the law. You have to know the words that are used in law.
Basically,
That way
you have
you
to
can
memorize
interpret.
Words the way they
law dictionary.
Exactly. So this is the answer.
That's the answer.
This is the answer to both of what you're saying.
Memorize Bouvier's law dictionary.
Yeah,
But pretty much
1856.
all words, aren't they?
Or blacks.
Defined by what, as a
I have
language for
blacks.
them,
Yes.
and we have a sort of a mass consumption way of understanding words that doesn't mean anything really, but.
Yeah,
we communicate with ourselves
your
and
conversational words are of course they mean something. They're basically spoken out of humanity and love, and hate, and the legal language has no emotion. It has no morals, ethics, values.
Right.
Okay. There's a list of things that can be legislated, and there's a list of things that cannot be legislated. Love, hope,
Exactly.
courage, all the beautiful things about life cannot be legislated, and yet when was the last time you
Marriage.
heard a political campaign that wasn't counting on family values or hope and change, right?
It's social
You
engineering.
can't
and emotional
legislate that.
manipulation.
What you can legislate is restrictions, punishment, crime. You can do all these horrible things, but you can never legislate the wonderful things about human beings and love and all that. So the answer, I say you've paid into it, you might as well collect it. But here's the truth, the one truth, okay? Humanity, I gave you the definition of freedom. It's a political term in legal language. Whereas being free, a free man, separated, a freeman is one word, and it refers to slave, a person that used to be a slave that is now free, has freedom. Okay, but a free space man is someone who doesn't have freedom. They are free to do what they want, period. Okay,
As long
but
as they obey.
as long as they obey what I refer to as God's law, it's not necessarily called that. Like I said, do no harm. As long as you're a free man, you must take responsibility for your actions. So when you harm somebody or when you harm their property, you must take responsibility for that. That is where, in my opinion, law becomes just. Okay, and the jury and all that stuff. And it's very hard to say that government is necessary, because I know it is for the purposes of enforcing God's law, which is not harming others. You have to have some form of government. I hate saying that, but it's true. What you don't need is all the everything else, basically in law, becomes legal. So if I walk my dog without a leash and my dog doesn't hurt anybody and I get a ticket for that, what is that? I didn't break a law. It's pre-crime, basically, which is becoming a reality.
It is.
So you have to make a choice, and this is the hardest choice anybody ever has to make, and it's becoming more and more impossible to make. You have to make a choice. Do you want to be a free man, or do you want political freedom with benefits from government? Most people don't know the difference, and most people will always choose benefits to go with their political.
Well, we're living in a money system. Right? I mean, how am I going to pay my rent?
So most
I have to eat.
people act, the secure party creditors and all that, most people go in and out of the legal system to protect their natural rights. They actually have to enter into the political realm and become a citizen for a temporary space, and then go back to being a free man, because you have to use their laws to restrict them. And that's a whole other subject. But as far as vaccinations
Don't close the door.
As far as vaccinations go, like I said, this is it. I mean, you have to understand first that we have to remember that we're solid, and that America is America, the United States is something else. The federal government has perceived power, but really has no power. Now, it can come and beat you over the head, and there's nothing you can do about that. But in the legal realm, it only has power if you consent to that power. It will tell you that your kids must be vaccinated, even though it's not true.
They don't even have to tell you. They just do it. They don't even inform you.
Yeah. The important, I mean, if I had children, which I decided I wasn't going to, if I had children, it would be no different than telling your kids, stranger, and running away. I'd say, like, vaccination, and bolt, go. I don't care what the rules say. If they come at you with anything, you defend yourself. There is no, respect is not something that is just there. It's not natural. Respect is earned. You poke them in the eye. You poke that nurse in the eye, you go for the man's crotch, and you run home to me, and I'll help you.
Okay.
One simple
Yeah.
question.
Okay.
I don't know about the law at all, but isn't there a law which protect parents' decision? Like, we don't want our kids to have.
Well, that goes back to what he was just reading about what the parent is. There is that. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And that reading from that thing, the state feels that they are the legal owner of the child.
Uh-huh.
That's why they're they're vaccinating kids without even telling their parents.
Right,
Yeah.
and then there's a group I want you to join, parentalrights.org. At least they are addressing
Right,
the
and they're
fact.
talking about, remember, they're talking about political rights, and what needs to be talked about is that natural rights always
Natural
trump,
rights.
you know, but
And they're working against
the
the-
importance of the courts, and the reason that you always, if you have to go to court over the matter, this is the last thing, you always demand, not ask for, not request, not petition, but you always demand that you have a grand jury trial, okay? That way, you can educate the grand jury as to what the actual laws are. You can educate them on color of law. You can hire someone like, I mean, if I was doing law, you could hire someone like me to be a counselor, not an attorney. I'm not giving legal advice, just to cover my ass. Nor am I giving medical advice, because that would be against the legal code. But you must you must never consent to giving an officer of the court, which is the judge or an attorney or anyone else, you must never consent to giving them your power. When you take an attorney, which is an officer of the court, they don't work for you, they work for the court. Even your defending attorney, you're actually giving your power, you're becoming a ward of the court or a ward of the state. By taking an attorney, the word attorn means to give your power to. So you're actually giving the attorney the power to do what you should be doing, which is learning and using the law for yourself. So you become basically incompetent in the court's eyes because you have an attorney. That's getting a little probably too advanced, but
Yeah, you legally.
Could you just pause that for a second?
what, again, if we just rearrange the words to say the same exact thing, it literally says that the three most important things, life, liberty, and property, can be deprived with due process of law. That is where I said, whoa, wait a minute. You're telling me that the Constitution says that government can take my life, my liberty, and my property just because it says it's the law? Just because a court convicts me? And that's when I said the Constitution is not what I thought it was. And that's when I think everything turned around for me and I started really researching all of the...
And is that an
That's-
amendment? Is that an
That's the
amendment?
Fifth Amendment.
The Fifth
Scary
Amendment.
stuff. This is really
Sounds
scary
So
like
that's
stuff.
also the amendment that allows you to
Yeah,
refuse
the
to.
funny
Oh,
part about it
I
is
think
that
executive
now
order
that
is
we're
crazy.
executive orders now,
Why do you have a government? The president
We're
can
talking
write executive
about
order to do anything. There is no checks and balances.
But
Obama,
this is scary stuff. This is really scary
how
stuff.
Obama is
It's getting
consolidating
crazy.
power, and right now,
We think we're a
as
free
it
country? We're not a free
exists,
country.
Obama can, it's basically accusation is guilt, and that's what we have.
You don't even need an
You
accusation.
don't even need an accusation.
Don't even need it.
Technically you do, but I mean.
No, actually, the NDAA, there's no,
The new laws say no, they don't.
yeah, you don't, the reason you can't know who your accuser is there doesn't need to be an accuser.
It's really scary. The more scary to me, you know, there's a lot of, it seems like everybody that talks about this stuff, it's so dramatic and so
Yeah, I know.
horrible.
I'm
But
sorry.
I think the truth of the matter that we have to realize, and because we're not going to watch the movie, we need to talk about, I think most importantly, I've discovered a lot since that movie. It's been a whole year and a couple months since I finished the research and put that out. What's in vaccines, and if there's anything that I need to get out, it's this about it. Vaccines are literally grown on animal, blood, different types of body parts, monkey kidneys, and all that, and aborted fetal tissue,
Yes.
human
Yes,
fetal tissue.
yes,
And that,
yes.
if anything,
That's what.
as far as religious exemptions go,
that's
that's a big one. So, but that is not, that was the approach I was taking as far as the moral side, where, you know, morally I can't justify the fact that they're doing this. It's unnecessary, one. Two, it's, what I've discovered since then, and it's briefly touched in the movie with the squalene, which is something that's natural in the body, that if you inject a foreign squalene through the body, your body creates basically an antibody that starts fighting your own body's production of that squalene. Okay? Now, what I found is something called xeno and allotransplantation. So Tim is a good example. Tim, a long time ago, had a pig vein put into his body. Okay? A lot of times there's just not enough dead people that have been harvested for profit to replace body parts in the human body.
Pig vein, you say?
And pig vein, right?
Oh,
Yep.
pig vein.
Pig vein,
Because pigs are the closest resemblance to people. So
40 years
A lot of
ago.
ways.
so here's the issue. Anytime you put a foreign anything into your body is going to react with an immune response. So if I were to inject monkey kidney tissue, a vaccine that's grown on an animal, a vaccine that's grown, for instance, with blood from a cow, which they call
Bovine serum?
Serum, yes. There's another word I can't remember. Then chances are your blood is going to have a response such as leukemia, right? Leukemia is a cancer of the blood.
Yes, it is.
So every time that you get a vaccine, you're risking your body to the reaction. Now, one of the last things I wrote on my blog was a massive research thing that I did on something called prions, which he actually gave me a book on it, which was really ironic. Prions are what cause mad cow disease. A prion.
Could you hold that so I could get this on film?
Sure.
Thanks. Talk amongst yourselves. Or deny it, and that is that within the past 10 years, doctors have not been taking a Hippocratic oath upon graduation. Has anyone else heard this in the past 10 years?
A lot have.
They're
Different
getting
hospitals
rid
are
of
different.
You heard they're getting rid of it?
Definitely
Okay, I was wondering
phasing
if
it
they'd
out.
actually gotten rid
The
of it.
company that a friend of mine works for has decided to no longer do any pro bono work whatsoever because it's getting too hard to do it.
Legally.
Without, yeah, I mean,
Okay.
it's my belief, you know, I've said this for a long time. My first time that I tried to do anything is I was trying to get people, first I tried to organize graffiti artists. Since they're going out and painting absolute nonsense on walls, they might as well paint that 9/11 was an inside job. Right? Or something that'll actually make people go, instead of, look at that, gross. But that didn't happen. Then I wanted to start a group in schools, an after-school group that kids could join. I was trying to get kids to start them. That would be sort of like a group like this, you know, where kids could actually sit around and talk about whatever that actually concerns them.
Yes.
Or even get an education outside of school.
Right, exactly.
And the
Yes.
point is
Yes.
that you really need to start young, and you need to get the next generation that's coming up, because the one we have now is already ruined, basically. It's already been so indoctrinated, and the nurses and doctors have probably the most cognitive dissonance that I've ever seen, because they have to believe that injecting a child is right. Because if they believe it's wrong, then how can they do it? You know, it's a constant battle of the ego.
Right.
That's.
I've had a nurse
dissonance.
take one of my flyers, rip it up, and shove it in my face.
Sure.
And I didn't know she was a nurse.
And actually get kids, you know, don't talk to strangers, say no to drugs, do your homework. You need something like that, even if it's the same, you know, just say no.
I
You
thought
need-
Run for Your Lives was a good one.
Well, yeah, I
That's really
mean,
good.
seriously, even if you gotta have something that's catchy. What we're doing now is not catchy. My 2.5 hour film, most people won't get through because they're not. It's meant for people who want to learn, not just watch for entertainment. Most people want to be entertained.
I'm waiting to find in the news a 5-year-old bites nurse trying to inject it. You know, that's what
Yeah.
that's what needs to happen to hit the news.
Yeah, seriously.
Is
I
a
mean,
child that is defending themselves against somebody,
Now, here's the
and that's
kicker,
it.
Okay, but I was gonna say that
They have to
in
learn to
instances
defend
where
themselves against.
up in Massachusetts, you know, I can't get into how bad Romney was, but up in Massachusetts, they had that. They had mothers who were basically telling their children, if they try to vaccinate you, this is what you tell them. You say no, and you say no because my mother says so. You do not have my permission. You do not have my mother's permission. Because remember, they've been inoculating kids for a very long time against everything, anything and everything you can think of. And in these instances where these parents had told these children this, they start informing against the parents, say, you know, these parents are teaching their kids some really crazy things, and they're not unfit, they're not fit. And they've been passing it, and they've taken their kids away. They've taken away their parental rights in many cases.
See, this is the threat we're talking about.
Like, this is how a lot of these, it's not a sexy issue, you know? It's not like, you know, the environment, you know, it's not like, you know, defending all the dogs, you know, that are getting, you know, executed, you know, prison style. You know, that's a big issue with me too, but it's not, you know, it doesn't
No,
have,
this is a
doesn't
war
have teeth.
on our children,
You know?
and it is nothing less. This, I keep telling people, because I'm a peace activist. I'm a peace activist, and everyone says, why aren't you talking about the war if you're a peace activist? And I say, I'm talking about the war. It's the war that nobody's acknowledging, because there's no explosion. But there's an explosion in some kid's head. There's an explosion in some kid's artery.
The full picture, you have to really, and this is why I say, you know, we're talking about comprehension, we're talking about really understanding what's happening. There's such a bigger picture, and this, you know, my first film, and I'm sort of a mentor of a guy named Walter Burian who does comprehensive annual financial reports, which are the basically the real set of books for government, the full investment portfolio of government. And the second movie I made was called The Great Pension Fund Hoax, and it goes through all the big pension funds, which are government-owned, government corporations, and explains something very important. And this is to grasp a full picture of what's happening. You have to understand that most taxpayer money is collected, put into the general fund, which can be used for anything, and then put out of the general fund and go into these separate little funds that then restrict the money for a certain purpose, a legal purpose. So now we have all kinds of taxpayer money that's sitting in an account being invested in other things, or we are contributing to pension funds, which then pay benefits. Basically, we're back to the benefits. It's always about the benefits, and yet CalPERS, for instance, is the largest pension fund. And when I did the film, it had 236, I think, $billion in investments. That to pay like $6 or $7 billion worth of benefits to the people. Pension funds are literally the largest investors of any corporation. So what happens every year is that government, federal government, makes allotments to vaccine corporations, pharmaceutical corporations, for what's called research and development. So now the companies don't even have to pay for their own research. The taxpayers do through debt. So billions and billions of dollars go to each corporation, of which government is the main shareholder. Okay? So plus, as the movie shows, the vaccine companies, because they're contracted with government, they're also protected and acting under color of law by government. And so they will not be responsible, again, no responsibility for their actions. So if thousands and millions of kids, apparently about 1 in 3 kids are developing cancer now. 1 in 3 children by the age of 18 will have some form of cancer, and I think they're shooting for 2 in 3. Just like autism, now it's 1 in 25 in one of the states, I can't remember, one of the countries. You know, you have a scenario where we have to remember that pharmaceutical drugs do not, under any circumstances, cure disease.
Right.
If you wipe out the disease, there's no need for the pharmaceutical company.
That's right. That's right.
So what better way to make a profit for your stock investment than to force people into getting a vaccine, even if in the vaccine it's nothing but saline water, right? I mean, even if you faked vaccines, you could still develop this whole entire system to collect taxpayer money to pay for the vaccines, which in turn pays the corporation, and the shareholders, which mostly are government, are going to get a kickback. Most of the money that's collected in taxpayer money goes into what's called corporate bonds. In other words, they give low interest loans to what you were talking about with the trading loans and stuff. Most of the taxpayer money gets put into corporate bonds, which are low interest loans to corporations. You ever wonder why Walmart can expand so quickly? It's because taxpayers are paying for it, because the money is taken out of the supply and put into a loan to a corporation. Corporation does that and pays it back over time, and the debt is sold, like you were talking about. So basically government is in debt to nobody but itself. There is no debt, technically. The Federal Reserve actually owns the majority of America's debt. And again, as much as people like to think it's true, the Federal Reserve is a government entity. It's a government corporation. So what I'm trying to say is that this is all based on profit. The more kids you can vaccinate, the more profit you can make, not only in the corporation itself, the more taxpayer money you can pull out for research and development, the more taxpayer money you can invest in the companies, the bigger dividends are returned, the more money can be invested in other things. So you're not going to just see mandatory vaccines, you're going to see something like Soma from Brave New World? Some mandatory antidepressants, mandatory, you name it. As long as it's profitable, it's going to become law. You're going to become legally required. In order to receive your benefits with your mark of the beast, your social security number, in order to get a job, you're going to have to be vaccinated, or you're going to have to wear a certain kind of uniform, a certain kind of shoe. You're going to have to do a certain kind of thing. The reason for that is because government is a stockholder in these corporations. When you see a whole country, Somalia, get ruined by some storm that conspiracy, theorists say that was created, or when New York gets slammed, when the city got slammed by this recent hurricane.
Yeah, through HARP.
What happened? Was the Red Cross there to rescue everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Did you know that Red Cross is a quasi-governmental corporation? Do you know that the board of directors of the Red Cross is basically a who's who of corporate heads and CEOs?
Yes.
I mean, that's what you're dealing with. This Red Cross is not an agency to help people.
They were not on the scene.
It's really not so much for America, but when something happens in a foreign land, especially a third world, or even companies like Halliburton, same thing. They're getting the government contract to rebuild what the military destroys or what a storm destroys. Mm-hmm. So the best thing you can do is be a board member of the Red Cross if you have a construction company or a shipping company or anything that's going to involve that disaster. The best thing that can happen to your corporation is a disaster. Well, likewise, the best thing that can happen to the medical industry and the pharmaceutical industry is to vaccinate kids and make them sick the rest of their lives. Okay, because then the pharmaceutical and the medical industry is going to have to treat the symptoms. They're never going to create a cure. They're going to cause the disease and treat the symptoms. So this goes back to what I found. I found this thing called prions. Never heard of them before in my life. Like I said, he gave me a book that was actually a really good book, and you guys can look this up on my blog if you want to read the whole thing. But basically,
What's the name of the book?
Deadly Feasts was the name of the book. I don't remember the author.
Okay.
But basically, there was a tribe in New Guinea that was a cannibalistic tribe, and they were basically ritually eating the dead men, mostly. And they developed a disease called kuru. Kuru is one of the prion diseases. Prions basically affect the brain in different ways. So if you think of all the neurological disorders that they call dementia, okay? If you ask a nurse or a doctor, even the most skilled practicing, doctor that's been around for 50 years, and you say, what is Alzheimer's? What causes Alzheimer's? They will say, well, we don't know.
They wouldn't say it like that. They'd say
They
More
would beat
technical
around
terms.
the bush. They would say it's a
$20
neurological
words.
disorder with symptoms that
$20
range from this, but basically they do not know. My nurse friends say they do not know. They're honest about it. We do not know. We can only treat the symptoms. Okay, this is a whole range of diseases, Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, all of these different diseases. It's my opinion, from the research that I did after the vaccine film, that all of these dementia diseases are caused by one thing, and that is this prion. And a prion is nothing more than a protein gone bad. Mad cow disease is a prion disease that when you ingest or breathe in downer cattle, you get this prion disease. It's incurable according to what they tell you. It affects the brain and it causes all of the symptoms basically of Parkinson's, any dementia type of diseases. What I believe is happening to the entire human race, including HIV, all these different, I should say AIDS, because AIDS, when you're talking about dementia, AIDS, and many other diseases, they're not diseases. They're descriptions of symptoms. So when you're talking about Alzheimer's, for instance, Alzheimer's is nothing but a description of symptoms. It is not a disease. Parkinson's is a description of symptoms. It's not a disease. What we aren't focusing on is what is causing. And we'll say it's aluminum, or we'll say it's mercury that causes the autism, all these things. But the question is, what is the mercury and the aluminum and all these different environmental things? What is causing the symptoms? It's not the mercury, it's not this. What I believe is that by injecting the proteins that are used to grow the vaccines, including human aborted fetal tissue, including bovine, where mad cow disease comes from, bovine serums, bovine this, bovine that, pig, monkey, guinea pig, you name it, they use basically everything. So if you think about the way that mad cow disease is transmitted is technically by eating an infected cow, and it turns into what's called Khrushchev-Jacobs disease, which is the main prion disease. But if you actually, and they say it's maybe 1 in a million that actually get it, it's always fatal. You basically turn into a zombie, and your whole system shuts down and you die. There is no cure, there is no nothing. It's basically the proteins infecting or touching other proteins, turning them into folded proteins that start shutting down your brain or eating your brain. Mad cow disease is called bovine spongiform encephalopathy. And when you look at the brain of the cow, it's literally got holes eaten through it from these infected proteins called prions. When you look at the brain of an Alzheimer's patient, when you look at the brain of Parkinson's, or anybody else with dementia of any type, and we're talking about hundreds of disease states or whatever you want to call them, they all have got some form of encephalopathy. When I was doing the research, I found that cancers are at least 50% caused from a lack of good protein structure. In other words, prions that have not changed. It's hard to explain. It's all in the blog. What I'm trying to say, after all that, what I'm trying to say is that we are literally injecting ourselves with, medicine has turned into cannibalism. So you take cells of a cloned aborted fetus, you grow a vaccine culture, the substrates on it, and then you filter it, even though there's no way to filter out all the proteins, and especially the prions, because they're microscopic. And you do a direct bodily injection into your bloodstream, into your muscular system, with a disease-causing agent, right? Disease being, again, a bunch of symptoms. And you're literally injecting what I believe are prions, or something that causes a prion disease, which is, again, this encephalopathy, spongiform encephalopathy, which is literally eating holes in people's brains. I don't know how to explain it any better than that, but what you're doing, and this is why I would never take a vaccine, I would never recommend any child get a vaccine, not because of the ingredients like mercury, formaldehyde, which is what you put dead frogs in for biology class, not the squalene or anything else. These are all bad things. My big concern now, even after that film, is literally the prion structure, the proteins that we're injecting. If you inject kidney particles from a monkey into your body, chances are your body is going to develop an antibody to your own system, your own kidneys. When you're, what I'm trying to say is that I believe that all disease, or all modern disease, all the dementia diseases, the HIV/AIDS, the lupus, all these leukemias, polios, they're all caused from injecting not only human proteins but animal proteins into our body in a direct injection. And the pharmaceutical and the psychiatric industry is in charge of naming all of these diseases, in charge of putting a bunch of symptoms into a class and calling them a disease, right? So, and we all know that the American Medical Association and other private associations were all started by the Rockefellers, the bankers, basically, the big families, the big wealthy families, and they completely destroyed any chiropractic or allopathic medicine. So, if there's any other reason besides the moral and the other ingredients, if there's any other reason that you would not want to get a direct bodily injection with a vaccine, I'm telling you from the bottom of my heart, I'm not selling you anything here, I'm just telling you, you got to read what I've put together because it'll explain a lot better than I am now, but you are literally injecting something that will cause an immune response to whatever it is, the foreign protein that is similar to whatever's in your body. In the movie, we talk about how they're controlling the horse population up in Montana, up in the Wyoming area, and they're basically injecting pig ovaries, literally little pieces of pig ovary into your body. Your body has a natural response, an immune response into the horse's body. Well, it's also in the patents for human vaccines.
Oh yeah.
Okay, it's actually a thing that they're already using and testing and all that on humans. The way that the U.S. Geological Society explains it is that it goes in, and if you're a male, it latches on to the protein structure of the sperm or the testicles, and prevents spermatogenesis, which is the creation and nursing of sperm to full maturation. Therefore, you cannot deliver your sperm. They can't swim.
That's what Bill Gates is doing with the African population, right?
Absolutely.
Because he does
Yep.
not want
Absolutely.
population to grow.
We're talking about wild horses, or we're talking about?
Yeah, we're talking about the wild stallion population up all through the country. They've been.
It was getting too big.
That literally, you've heard the 90% figure of depopulation, right?
Oh yeah.
Well, they've managed to control the population growth of horses up to 90% with just by injecting a vaccine with the purpose of the vaccine is to inject particles of an ovary from a foreign, not a horse, but a pig. Your body horse body reacts, also the human does too. I've got the patents in the movie. And you literally will not be able to reproduce. It can be temporary, or it can be permanent, okay? It's crazy, yeah, it's crazy like a fuck. And I guess the last thing I want to say is you guys need to differentiate between what's called population control and depopulation. If you're depopulating, then you're killing. If you're controlling the population, like they are in the horse populations, they're simply preventing you from having children. They're preventing procreation. And that in itself is not depopulating. It's more of a stability type of thing. But eventually, if you start thinking about the possibilities of making people sterile by injecting pig ovaries or whatever they're injecting, if you inject brain particle, if you inject whatever, some part of your body's going to start attacking. They're designing these things to attack certain parts of the body. If you inject cancer into the body, or if you inject the thing that fights cancer, which can be a number of things, but I actually think it is the prions, then your body is going to attack the thing that prevents cancer from forming in your body. This is what I'm trying to get across. This is why vaccines are so dangerous. It's not the mercury, that's dangerous.
So
it's
explain-
not that. It is literally the body's reaction to foreign animal or human.
So explain
That
all
was
these
the whole
prions.
purpose of having
Yeah.
vaccines in the first place. Like everybody, I'm sure everybody here knows that, the whole vaccine, vaca means cow, where they came up with this because farmers
Cowpox.
who were dealing with cowpox, and so the theory was that the more pharmaceutical version was that if they took some of this, took a weakened, whatever they're talking about, and weakened it, that the human body would be able to fight it off. So everything he's saying sounds terribly on point.
So these prions can't be destroyed. They can't be
They're-
killed with heat. They can't be
Protein
killed.
ions.
They can't be killed with radiation.
There's
They
no
can't be.
nucleus,
There
there's
is
no
nothing to
DNA.
kill a prion. They keep getting passed on. So when we eat a cow now that's been infected, it's going into us. Now we have children. The problem is incubation is 40 years on some of these prions. 40 years.
Don't close the door.
So they're being passed on just through reproduction.
Prion, yeah,
I mean,
so-
you don't even have to be injected.
No, now say you eat farm-raised fish. Well, they're feeding bone meal, bovine bone meal to fish, farm-raised fish. They're putting in prions into fish. So when you eat a fish now, you are getting the
Yeah,
prions
and
too.
there was
They're being
an article
bombarded.
that
So
I
you
put
just
in.
pass this prions to your
Right.
children just through reproducing,
Exactly.
and without even
The-
having to have them
See, now in the
injected.
cow population, it should have died off because cows are not cannibalistic. I can't say the word. But they are grinding up cows
Yes, they are.
that are downer and they're feeding them to other
They have
animals.
Yes,
a,
they
they have
are.
a,
Yes,
they have
they
a
are.
shelf, or a.
Yes, they are.
Prions can live, they say 50 years dormant before they wake up and start infecting other proteins.
So you can pass them on to your children.
So you could literally have them and pass them on to your children. Your children could get sick and die just because they've been dormant in your body. That's, as I understand it. So that's what I'm saying. If medicine
That's
is
a big
turned,
thing to say.
if medicine is turned into
All right.
cannibalism,
I see.
literally.
All right. I thought that the only way to get prions is through vaccination, but apparently not. You
No.
can actually
No, there's
pass
an
it
article I have
to the
on
next generation.
the end of this article that I'm talking about, which is, it's called xenotransplantation. When we say that, we're talking about putting animal parts into the human body. That's becoming very popular because people are waiting on the list and dying before they can get a kidney or something, right? So they're literally, this is becoming the new great science. So you're literally transferring animal parts into your body. Your body's going to react to it no matter what. And the way they stop that is they lower the immune system so that your body accepts the animal part for a while. So you're also all of a sudden susceptible to everything, and you can't fight off any type of infection. So it's crazy. The whole thing is just nuts. And it's obvious to me that they've known about this for a long time. And it's my thought that it's purposeful and that they'll treat the symptoms of the people that don't die from it. But it's also, apparently, it's, like I said, it's the cause of cancer, or it's not the cause of cancer. Cancers can't grow without the prions diminishing or becoming, prions are good and bad. So, I don't know, it's,
You have to think, what is the American Cancer Society actually doing?
Oh,
grand
don't get me started on
experiment.
that. Because,